Hi everyone, my name is Madeline Liu, and I'm one of the hosts of Illuminating Alumni, a podcast from the University of San Francisco, the School of Management Honors Program. So, what exactly is Illuminating Alumni? This is essentially a podcast that is aiming to solve two main problems. For starters, for current students, we know you get a lot of value from alumni events, but we know that the journey doesn't end there for the alumni. We wanted a really evergreen way to capture their journeys and to actually show that their journey to success or in their progress of success looks a little bit less like this and a little bit more like this. And our second problem is that for alumni, we wanted to make sure that we could share your stories as a legacy of SOMHP and show what it's like actually being in a tight-knit learning environment and a very hands-on kind of program, and show what kind of legacy we're leaving behind as multiple cohorts of students over a long period of time. And to anyone else, we hope that this inspires you from these journeys to hopefully be able to take the hands on your own career. And if there's a business venture that you've been always thinking of doing, that we encourage you to, go out there, ask questions, ask your professors, ask your peers, and to hopefully be inspired by a lot of these journeys. Just be mindful, this was recorded in 2021 when we first initially piloted the podcast. We wanted to revamp a lot of things, but we wanted to make sure to still give the proper space and time and appreciation for the stories that we did record during that time. So this is currently being filmed in 2022, but we just wanted to put it out there that we are actually looking for some hands to actually help us out with this. So if you are an alumni who is interested in being involved, make sure to reach out to us in the comments or in the email in the description. And if you're a student, we're actually looking for students who are interested in some sort of realm of content creation. This will range from video editing, copywriting, SEO research, as well as providing feedback for this podcast to help us make it even better over time. We hope that in about 1 year, we are able to build a solid team, whether it's including myself or not, and essentially lead a strong team to be able to make this podcast be its best form that it could be. So if you're a student who's interested in that, feel free to also let us know in the comments. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was super, super inspiring at the time when we recorded, and it still is, and Isa Spies is amazing, so please enjoy this. All right, enjoy. All right, so hello, everyone. My name is Madeline Liu. I'm one of the hosts of this podcast, Illuminating Alumni, and today we are recording our second episode of the podcast. We have a lovely guest, Isa Spies, and Isa was an international business major here at USF from 2014 to 2018. And during her time at SOMHP, this was during the early stages of the program when so many things were just still in the working and new processes. It was much smaller and much more tight-knit, and which thankfully she's still able to now reconnect back to them in our cohort even after graduating. Isa's specialty lies in her strong passion for sustainable fashion and as her role and identity as a creative entrepreneur. Currently today, she's working full-time with a startup, carrying many hats at her role there and working towards waste-free clothing rental services for vintage clothing. And as of recent, she is also working towards a new hobby of hers, styling. So without further ado, let's welcome in Isa.
Hello. Thank you for having me here on the podcast. I'm very excited to be sitting down and speaking.
Yeah, and we're so happy to have you. Your story is truly so inspiring from our pre-conversation. But yeah, so without further ado, I'm just going to start asking some of the guiding questions. So to begin with, tell us your story. How exactly did you embark on this journey of sustainable fashion? Where would you start? How did you get here? And we want to hear everything that you're willing to share. So yeah, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, once upon a time. So yeah, I can kind of, I'll dial back because I want to eventually get to USF, but just to give context to the fashion aspect, we'll go a little farther. So I've always loved fashion as an outlet of expression, and I always found home in creating really interesting outfits that I'd wear to school during my high school days.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say my high school was pretty conformist in terms of what people wore, but me and one of my friends specifically, I feel like we'd always kind of have our extra flair. And obviously looking back at those outfits now, I'm like, ooh, I'm like cringed by them. They're not necessarily super like styled well by any means, but I did have some certain pieces. I had a pair of Jeffrey Campbell shoes. Litas, because Litas were a very popular shoe at the time, but they were also very chunky and they had this metal top part. And I wore those, I remember junior and senior year, and it just, I felt, like I had a little extra thing going for me. So fashion just was like a way that I could sort of almost like wear my armor too, because I have a condition, and I'll just talk about it briefly on here because it's something I've had my whole life, but I have this condition called hyperhidrosis. So I have very sweaty hands, and and during my childhood, that gave me a lot of anxiety because I was always like sweating everywhere, and it just made navigating life a little bit harder, especially having an anxiety for all to see per se. But I felt like when I had my fashion on, it was almost like this extra layer that I could wear, and then it would sort of like in my mind deflect attention from like my sweaty hands. So it kind of stemmed from that, from like a psychological perspective, my love for fashion. But the sustainability aspect came in, I would say mainly from my grandma on my mom's side, because she's always been a big thrifter. She's been going to thrift stores since before the fad was a thing.
She was ahead.
More, was singing about thrift shopping. And she would always find really cool pieces, and obviously a lot of like funky like grandma sweaters and like vests that were her style, but also some really neat like one-offs. Like I remember she found this gorgeous Kate Spade purse that she gifted to my mom, and while she was at Savers, which is a secondhand store that's now out of business, but she lives in Phoenix, Arizona, and it was a popular chain there. She found this insane like YSL sweater that almost looked like a church window, like a stained glass window, the way it was color blocked. And so, so basically, from her, and then also my grandmother on my dad's side, my father is from Germany. So I am half German and half American. And my Oma on my father's side was a very classy lady, and she just had such a chic way of dressing herself. And I always loved going to visit because she would usually gift me something, like a little necklace or whatever it may be. And it was a little trinket that I could bring home. And even to this day, I have so many of her beautiful pieces that I love to wear, especially because fashion comes back into style. And so flash forward to my time at USF, I'm from Maryland originally. That's where I grew up. And I love to travel and I love to expand my horizon. My world is very big. And so I eventually kind of saw that USF was the right move for me, considering my intrigue by the city and how colorful and diverse and vibrant of a place it seemed. And so even though no one in Maryland at the time really knew what USF was, they thought it was, as we joke about, like the University of Southern Florida. I still headed to San Francisco, all the way across the country. And I decided to study international business specifically because of the practicality behind it, like learning the way of the world, learning how our system works within capitalism, and the aspect, just because I do have such the travel bug and I love meeting new people. And I just thought, oh, wow, like that will kind of create that path for me where down the line I'll be able to have this global perspective and, and learn about other cultures and how they navigate the business realm. And so during my time at USF and during my time with the School of Management Honors Program, I harnessed my business skills, took all the marketing, the finance classes, et cetera, et cetera. But I did sort of pinpoint that my mind is more humanities focused. So the number crunching and the analytics, I knew weren't necessarily my thing. However, marketing, definitely like I could see, in social media, that kind of realm, I could see some synergy there. And so I graduated from USF, and I had a crazy year of self-discovery. I did a teacher training in yoga. I did a workaway in
Wow.
Mexico, and specifically this workaway in Mexico, it was in sustainable fashion. It was working for a sustainable fashion startup in this small little Mexican beach town. And through that, I really realized, oh my God, there's some harmony here. Like, I've always loved style, I've always loved expressing myself, but USF specifically taught me this idea of social impact and giving back, based on the Jesuit principles. And then I studied business. So I was like, okay, like, how does this all kind of fit together? But I realized through my time, specifically during that work away, that there was harmony, and that harmony came in the realm of sustainable fashion. Because sustainable fashion isn't just about the earth. I mean, that is a huge factor, but it's also about people, the planet, beings, and just looking at systems holistically and circularly, and creating impact, and making your time on earth a better place than when you arrived. And all that just like sounded like great for me, because I think as a Gen Z millennial cusp, I think it's interesting to note that we not only want a job that is fruitful monetarily and gives us some status in the world, but also combines our passions. We kind of want it all, and I think it's also realistic, if we have our dreams to run after them. So after the workaway, I kind of in San Francisco months, but then I found this program in New York at the Fashion Institute of Technology, and it was in sustainable design entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship was one of my favorite classes at USF. It was during my senior year. It was our capstone that we did with the honors program, and it was really fun because it was basically like working towards a pitch competition and working with a group. And I just love that. I love the inspiration of like creating my own endeavor. And so this program at FIT seemed like the right fit. I wanted to learn more about the industry of fashion, but through that lens of entrepreneurship. So I did that program, but the pandemic hit in March of 2020. And luckily by that time I had finished almost all of the classes, and they were all like sustainable marketing, circular product life cycle, sustainable design thinking, et cetera, et cetera. But the last two classes were online, luckily. So even though the pandemic hit and I went back home to Maryland, I could still complete them. And and then I had a few months in limbo, but eventually I got the job that I currently have, which is working for a blockchain startup that is at the intersection of transparency and traceability. So it just, again, felt like a really good fit, considering that through my program at FIT, I had this like innovation cap on, where I was kind of thinking, oh, what's the future of fashion look like? Like, where are we headed?
Mhm.
But then the idea of that sustainability, that transparency aspect combined into what we're doing. And and so now I'm currently with this startup, and I do many things. I do a lot of different roles, and I think that's something to consider for any graduate from USF per se, that trying to like see, oh, like, you want to be in the corporate world or do you want to be in the startup world? Because I will say I haven't been in the corporate world yet, but from the perspective of my friends, it does seem very different. The startup realm is definitely very free flowing, very like roll up your sleeves, and like people aren't really telling you what to do. Sometimes you really have to own it and take initiative. And I find that the way my brain works and the way that I like to be stimulated, it seems to be a good fit for me, this realm. And it's also constantly evolving. And so, one day I'll be doing one thing and one day something else because it's moving a mile a minute. And my job is virtual, so it's entirely online, which I think is a very modern concept here in the 21st century. So my coworkers are all across the United States, all different time zones, which creates quite an interesting little dynamic going on sometimes. But it's very nice, the flexibility of it all, and being able to work from wherever. Because as I said, I do like to travel. I spent this summer, I went to a bunch of different places in this kind of post-pandemic haze. And I was able to work from any location. So that was really, really cool. And then simultaneously, even though I have this full-time job right now, I'm also trying to build a little shop where I sell vintage designer clothing from the 90s and 2000s. I love that type of clothing. And when I did my program at FIT, I worked for a vintage shop in right in the heart of Manhattan, New York City, a very bustling store, a lot going on all the time. And that's where I cultivated my love for designer from this era, because just was such a creative time and there was just so much happening with fashion. And I kind of romanticized the 90s a little bit in my head from my perspective. And so I'm really happy now to be both collecting and selling different designers. I love Jean-Paul Gaultier. That's the top I'm wearing right now. And I love Anna Mula Meester and Roberto Cavalli, all these big designer brands, but specifically from this time period. And this time period, they call it archive fashion. So it's specific clothing from specific runway shows that designers were known for. And so there's a lot of hype around it. And just tying back into like the business realm too, resale is just like crazy. Like secondhand clothing, that niche is totally on the rise. And I'm very happy to see it, considering that buying vintage is the most sustainable option since those clothes are already in existence. And so it's just great, yeah, to be kind of a part of the niche. And then as you introduced me with, I do want to get more into styling. And so I'm kind of seeing things transgress in that direction. And I want to see if, more avenues open as I sort of harness this passion a little more. And I also create some content too. I was unemployed during the pandemic for a little bit, and I decided to start a YouTube channel. And my big thing, which was inspired by this woman, Karen, out of New York City, is to go around LA, where I live right now, to specific neighborhoods, areas, and ask people about their style. So I usually go up to people. It's a little intimidating sometimes. And, especially during COVID, fizzle out. It's definitely, took a lot of like bravery to go up to people and be like, hey, like, you want to talk to me?
Yeah.
But it's been pretty successful and it's like a lot of fun too. I've met a lot of people and I've loved dissecting people's styles, depending on which area of LA I'm in, because like it totally differentiates going from Rodeo Drive, where it's so designer heavy, very logo mania, to, for instance, Silver Lake, which is where I live right now, where it's a little bit more alternative and just more like vintage and secondhand clothes. So it's been nice, even just for my own sake, to document the style in different areas of the city. So yeah, as you can probably tell, I like to do a bunch of different things. I have trouble sitting still sometimes. I'm just such a curious person, and I just love trying things out. And one of my mottos is like, try everything once. So yeah, where I'm at now, I'm definitely feeling a little bit more grounded in what I'm doing, but I'm still sort of letting my growth take me wherever it is that I want to go next.
Wow. Okay. Wow, that is such a crazy and inspiring story to hear, honestly. Like just originating for like why you love fashion, how you love sustainability, and how there's a connection there for you, like with your
Mhm.
own family as well. And honestly, just seeing like I totally resonate with how you feel about like having those multiple facets of interest. And like, so I also believe too that like you don't know what's on the other side of that door until you knock, right? And that means
Exactly.
there's just so many more doors to knock.
Exactly.
But yeah, but I think like I'm so happy for you that you were able to really just, like really hone in on your passions, hone in on what you loved, and trust that like, everything would unfold. And it seems like, that really was the case, when you keep tabs and know what keeps you happy, what keeps you going and fulfilled, I think it just leads you to where you need to go. So, so happy for you for that. Oh my goodness.
Thank
Wow,
you.
that is
Thank
amazing.
you.
And your shirt is also very, very cute.
Oh, thank you.
I'm
Yeah,
loving the style and
it's
everything. Oh my
crazy. Like
goodness.
it's insane. I mean, nowadays, because all the top like influencers, celebrities like Kim K and Kylie Jenner, they're starting to wear Gautier. So his stuff is actually harder to find
Oh
from
wow.
this period of time because it's a little
Yeah.
bit more popular now. But I'm so happy. I got this one on Depop like
Ooh.
like a year ago, I think, or no more, like a year and a half ago. But yeah, it has like a very, very fun like woman's face print on it.
Yeah, it is so adorable. And I was actually curious too, like, did you ever try like Depop and Mercari and other like secondhand like I guess commerce kind of like apps and
Yes,
websites? Yeah.
yes, I did Depop during the pandemic when I was home, as another thing to keep myself occupied when I didn't have a job and just was
Right.
hanging out because I have a hard time sitting still. I think I mentioned that before, but I can't just like I mean, I can lay on the couch sometimes, but it's hard for me to just kind of sit there and like do nothing. So I did have a little shop going for Depop. And now with my business, like I'm doing it on Instagram and Depop. And then the hope is that at some point, either I'll have a website up and running and or get my clothes into a boutique store where I could have like my own little section. Okay, curated by Isa. My little brand is called I Spy Designer because my name is Isa, last name is Spies. I thought it was a cool little play on words.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I see it going. And it's just really wonderful the popularity of Depop, of Markari, of Poshmark, because it's just great also for like young entrepreneurs, I think, especially like teens, etc., who might not really have a job yet or just or as like side money too to have fun, modeling the clothes, writing descriptions, putting them up, making sales. It's just awesome. I think how fruitful and colorful the Depop space is now.
Yeah, definitely agree. Same here. Like, I think actually I can speak to that as well because I think growing up, both my parents made me like sell things on eBay and Mercari, clothing specifically as well, because they wanted me to gain like merchandising, product photography, customer relations experience.
Oh,
And so, yeah, and I think it's really cool also to see how much sustainable fashion has also taken strides like over the past, years as well. And it's become like I don't know about like normalized per se, but it's definitely something, whether it's because of fad or hopefully we're moving forward in the realm of like innovation and sustainability. But it's just so amazing, to see like not only another creative entrepreneur but someone who works towards like making a better impact, and a better footprint on the environment, on the world, and like cyclically as well. So I think that's really amazing to hear.
thank
But
you.
yeah, and I guess my next question for you then, and thank you again for like, being willing to share those stories and revelations and insights, not just on a professional level, but on an emotional, a personal, level as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, but I guess in regards to that, like, did you feel like there was a major challenge, or what was the biggest challenge for you, do you think, throughout your journey, whether it was from the beginning or the end, or even maybe today, it's something you still face? Mhm.
Yeah. So I had a big hurdle during the pandemic after I finished my program at FIT with finding a job. That was just very, very tough during that time, just because of how the unemployment market was. I mean, so many people were out of work. And I think, yeah, based on my niche too, it's just was a lot harder. But I think my perseverance in applying to jobs, because I applied to many jobs, many. Um, it just proved to me that, like, you can't give up. You have to keep pushing. If you deserve something, and if you know that's what you want, it will come. And it takes, it takes work, it takes effort. You can't just sit on the couch. You have to actually put in the time and energy. But for me, like, for instance, I actually just I found this job via LinkedIn. So it wasn't through a personal connection. There was no nepotism involved with this solicitation. It was purely through LinkedIn, and purely because my expertise and my background fit the role, and I really got on with the person who was hiring me. But the advice I would say that I'm still trying to hone in on is networking. Networking is so essential. And I think in the past I've had some issues, because I'm like, just this is just from, like, a personal perspective, but I think, oh, I don't want the other person to think that I'm using them, or that,
Mm-hmm.
it feels like awkward because I'm asking for something. But I've been working on reframing that in my head, and seeing it more as a shared situation where I'm offering something and they're also offering me something. So it's a back and forth. It's a two-way street. But I definitely would say, like, it's just so important to be open to people, open to opportunities in any space you are, and to speak your truth. If there's something that interests you, that sparks you, and you're chit-chatting about it, in this room full of people, someone will be receptive to it, and someone will probably know another someone, who can hook it up for you. And so just that, yeah, being open to receiving, and to having connections with people is essential, I think, in the realm of work, and also just moving along too, moving on to other opportunities that arise.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it is something, like, I think we're kind of like taught, but I kind of know what you mean on that personal perspective as well. I think for me, I have so much trust in, like, right time, right place, like coincidences, and, meeting, like, I think it's just experience. I've experienced so many of those, like, synchronicities happen so often that, like,
I love the
um,
word synchronicity.
yeah.
That's like one of my favorite concepts,
I know, it's
synchronicity.
such a beautiful, beautiful thing, honestly. Like, when it
It
happens at
is.
the right time, right place, and, like, everything is, like, exactly what you need it to be in that moment. It's a very beautiful and comforting, like, coincidence, fate, however you want to say it. But I think that is really, it's a really good perspective you have to kind of reframe it as a more of a mutual professional connection, rather than, like, milking someone and
Right,
manipulating them. Yeah. So I think for
right.
sure, like, as long as the intention is, like, clear, that you're transparent, and there's no murkiness, because I've definitely had also, like, poor experiences with that as well, where they came in the calls, like, with one intention but left with another. And I think those kind of conversations are kind of more difficult to navigate, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I think it's really just so inspiring, like, even during those difficult times for you, that it really showed that, like, when you have that North Star, when you have that thing carrying you forward, you know what you want, and you really love that choice too, that, you can have it, you can break it down, you can work towards it day by day, week by week. And
Yeah.
if that position doesn't exist too, you can be the pioneer for that as well.
Right.
And I
Right.
think your story is just, a testament to that as well, honestly. Like, being a sustainable fashion, being an entrepreneur that way as well. And even your position at, a startup working, a blockchain startup that's towards innovation. I think it's very fitting as well. And I'm happy that you're able to find, the right time, the right people, people that connect with you. So I'm really happy for you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Your advice that you're throwing is so good too.
No, all from you. So, but yeah, and so moving forward, more in a positive light. And so looking I guess like revelating back a little bit or reflecting back, I should say, do you feel as if there was any pivotal moment, event, or even person that you had throughout your journey? And yeah.
I would say that an important person on my journey was probably the woman who hired me for my current job. And she doesn't work at the company anymore, but it was almost like we were talking about fate and like synchronicity before, but I almost felt that with her. Like we just had this very genuine connection. And I think I was also very inspired because coming into a job that's in the crypto space, it does unfortunately, very unfortunately, tend to have less women who are higher ups in positions within these companies. And so this woman specifically, she was the head of marketing for the startup. And the way that she got the job was actually because, or her whole journey, I guess, in general, was because she was a woman in the crypto space and she was doing, things with Bitcoin and all that other stuff that's in the realm. And even though she didn't have a formal education in marketing, she was able to work her way up, and it just showcased what a spitfire she is. And I just was really inspired by that because I think it's so important. And I'm reading this book. It's called The Confidence Code that my mother actually gifted to me to read, but it is all about just the fact that many times there aren't women in certain positions of power, um, because of the way society is structured and because we've been taught to be silent and to not speak our minds. And I think this woman, for example, she was just someone that I got to know personally, who was really just doing that, the opposite. She was just really honing in on on her confidence, and it really, and she shined. So I was really looking up to her a lot when she was working for my company, and she left me with a lot of inspiration.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that, whether it was like, I mean, in general, that you were able to have that heart to heart, with someone and connect with them that way.
Yeah.
And, a role model, someone to look up to, and, like representing all the girl bosses out there.
Yes,
Ah,
so important.
yeah.
It really is, yeah, you realize more, like, unfortunately, when you're in the working world, how we're still lacking in representation in these higher up positions. And it's time to change that. It really
Yeah.
is.
No, it really is. And I guess following up on that, like, where do you see the future of like women in leadership in tech, and maybe even like the future of sustainable fashion? I'm curious like what you think as well, because like honestly, even for me, and I'm sure for a lot of our listeners, like, who are listening out there, like, you're gonna be a major inspiration as well, honestly, as a girl boss, as a female leader, as a pioneer for sustainable fashion and change. And so yeah, so like where do you see the industry and leadership in tech and sustainable fashion going?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see more women in power, that's for sure. And I also really, I hope to see more women in this personal niche I'm a part of, sustainable fashion or fashion in general. Because unfortunately, there still tend to be a lot of men in the realm. Although I mean, maybe this is from a stereotypical perspective. I don't want it to come across as that, but women know their fashion. Like we know how to dress, and especially comparatively to like the boys in basketball shorts who just roll out of bed during high school, and don't really care about what they're wearing. I feel like we have a good grasp of the realm. So I hope to see um, more women also pushing innovation, pushing startup ideas, and running with those ideas. And I hope to be sharing those spaces with other women too. I love spending my time with women. I absolutely love it. It's so comfortable and it's so cultivating. And I think if we harness that power and we take it to the top, I think magic happens. And the world becomes a more fruitful place. And so I know that's where we're headed, and I can't wait to see um, more women up there, shooting their ideas and not being afraid to speak their minds and to share with the world, what they have under their belt.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So
My
inspiring, literally.
my woman manifesto.
Oh my goodness. I definitely think that like you definitely like are and will be one of those pioneers, I think. And
Oh,
inspiration the same way like the person who interviewed you has, but to
I hope
listeners of this
so.
podcast, to future generations of USF as well. So
So,
yeah, I really hope that reality or that future forecasts will become a reality as well.
I mean, in any event too, it's like I want this to be a chain reaction. Like I hope that if I make it one day, that I'm handing off jobs to qualified women and supporting each other that way too. Yeah, and sharing the room with other women too. I that's what I want. I want a
Yeah.
world like that.
Yeah. Okay. No, same here. Same here. Oh my goodness. But okay. So now at this point of the podcast, we will be kind of shifting to a little bit more of the fun questions. So first of all, just thank you again for like sharing everything regarding your story, your personal, academic, professional, spiritual, revelations and development. And so yeah, just like one last time, want to say like thank you so much. But moving towards like a little bit more kind of like fun and looser questions.
Yeah, do it.
First of all, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And keep this very loosely. This is not a fixed script for you. Don't
Yeah.
have to manifest this one, but
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Well, I could see myself going on a few different paths, and also considering the way I've grown in the past few years, I can only imagine by the time 10 years rolls around, I will probably be morphed, even more than I am now. But I think I do feel very entrepreneurial. And I have some ideas. I have some sort of like circular economy in terms of fashion, like startup ideas. So I think it'd be very neat to have my own company going. But I also see myself just in whatever niche it is. Maybe it's styling, maybe it's doing more with my shop for my designer clothes. Maybe it's a little bit of everything. I don't know. But being able to hone in on my passion, my skills, but also work collaboratively. I think community is really important, bouncing back ideas, sharing spaces with other creative minds. And I definitely hope I'll be doing more of that when the 10 years rolls around, when I'm old and gray.
But still fashionable.
Yes, still throwing looks.
Wow, that sounds like an amazing future. And honestly, like I do hope you'll be able to manifest that out into reality. And I think there is such a necessity for that space for creative entrepreneurs. And I just think it's amazing that, that not only did you find your passion, but also that like you've been just like there's no really dream because you've been living the dream,
Oh,
I think
that's
that's
so
so
sweet.
amazing.
Oh, I mean, some days it doesn't feel quite like that, but I do enjoy having fun.
Yeah.
Third advice I always give to people is like enjoy life,
Yeah.
fun, like talk
Yeah.
to people, like it's hard. Life is also very hard, but you can also throw in some sugar and some spice
Yeah,
and move on with your
yeah.
day.
No, for sure. And I really resonate with that a lot. I think like really working towards the things that interest you and make your life cup feel full is so important.
Yeah.
But kind of just like deviating a little bit, I was curious, like, did you have any advice maybe for other listeners and students or even people out there who, might not know what their passion is, just curious if you had any input on that. Yeah.
I would say try things out. Just give it a whirl. That used to be one of my sayings. Give it a whirl. Just dip your toe in, and if it's not right for you, you'll feel it. You'll realize, and then you'll pivot, and you can pivot onto this thing. Nothing that we do is set in stone. Who we are, even like the person I was, for instance, during my time at USF was a version of me, but I'm also more evolved now than I was then. And that is because of trying things out, taking risks. And it can be very, very scary to get out of the box and get outside your comfort zone, but it's a challenge that comes with so many benefits because you're able to explore yourself more. Like, who knows, if you take that, try out that one pottery class, it might be something really awesome, and one day you might start your own pottery business. Who knows? But it takes that first step, that first actionable step, in order to kind of get on the path to finding what it is that clicks for you.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Wow, that is really good advice. And I definitely agree. I think like not only trusting your gut too, like after you try those things, but also knowing that like you could enter somewhere expecting one thing, but leave with something you didn't even know you needed. Right. And so I think that's really good. Yeah.
Exactly.
Great advice. And yeah, and so coming back to these fun questions that we had, next, I guess, is there any one book or resource that you would recommend to our listeners, and what would that be?
So just off of the top of my head, um, it's not a very like professional book per se, but it's just I do have a spiritual side to myself, and I just really loved the first time, and I read it time and time again too, The Alchemist, the book by Paulo Coelho. And it's a seemingly very simple story. It's about a young boy's journey to sort of like self-actualization, but it has so much wisdom that you can just take for your life, towards your dreams, professionally too. And it's super digestible. It's an easy read for anyone, and their mother. And so I would say that book definitely catalyzed me. Not everybody believes, in manifestation or like The Secret or any of that stuff per se, but I think there is a lot of validity to what you put your time and your energy towards. And it just kind of, it speaks to that a lot in a symbolic way. So that book, I mean, it was one of the books that really changed my life, which is a bit cliche because I think a lot of people say this thing about the book, but it's a really, really good read. And I would recommend it to anyone.
Oh, I definitely will check it out as well. I think that's so beautiful, honestly. Was that like your gateway as well into like the like more, or was it just your way of like bridging spirituality a little bit with like your ambitions and career? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, I think it was the bridge. And at the time, I was also listening to a lot of Oprah's Super Soul podcast.
Oh, so good.
So good. And there was a few episodes where she interviews him, and they talk about the spiritual realm and what it means to them. So I think at the time I just was looking for a little bit more guidance. And sometimes I come to that spiritual realm when I need it. And this helped me to just kind of look inwards again. And I mean, that's another
Yeah.
piece of advice too for people who are trying to passion, like look inwards, like even like look at what you like to do. If you like to take, that spin class, a few times a week, maybe a cool path would be to like become a spin instructor, or to like open your own studio or something. And so I think at the time, the advice that I was getting from Oprah, because she is so wise, coupled with this book, were just what I needed, to kind of hone in on what it is that I want to do with my life.
Yeah. Oh, that's so amazing. And energy goes where your attention goes. So I think it's very true. And that introspection is really so
Wisdom.
important. So
Love that.
but but yeah, and so we're reaching the final two questions. And thank you as well for sharing, that resource as well. I'm sure a lot of our listeners will love to check it out, or even Oprah's podcast.
Oh my gosh, I cannot read it. So good.
Yes, but yeah, so the next question is just, what does a day in your dream life look like? And this can be pretty loose, it doesn't have to be time by time, but just in a nutshell, yeah, what does it look like?
Oh wow. See, if the sky's the limit, I feel like I will go full throttle for this question. I feel like, oh man, like I mean, I love traveling so much. So I think it would probably involve me taking a trip. Um, yeah, I mean, one of my favorite cities, even though I live in LA right now, in LA is cool. I do love LA, but is Berlin. So maybe I'd find myself in Berlin because I just love that city so much. It's cool, and my father is German. maybe by that point, I'd be not only, I'd be selling my vintage clothes, but maybe I'd be styling someone cool, like someone like, I don't know, maybe I should just speak something into existence. Who should I style?
Oprah.
Oprah. Oprah. There we go. I'll style Oprah. Oh my gosh, yeah, I'll be styling Oprah, going to a shoot. Oh, excuse me. Oh my gosh.
No, all good, all good. No. Drink all the water or tea or anything you need.
It just hit me. Yeah, and then feel better.
Great.
Then I'd probably have a nice meal with some friends. I love Japanese food. I love like small little plates, sharing that, with a good group of people. Yeah, and then I'd probably also do some shopping. Like going to like a cool boutique or something and trying to find some of my, my designer vintage pieces for my collection.
Oh,
Really fun. So yeah, fun little coupling of like the superficial, but all like, like the love and the friendship and family.
yeah. No, that sounds like a perfect ideal day. That's so
and then
amazing.
maybe a little spa time too.
Little spa time. Okay, a little bit of wind down time to breathe,
Self-care.
relax. Got it. But okay. But yeah, and I guess our final question for you today, is just where can we find you on social media? So whether you have current projects you're working on, you'd like to share, or just places where you'd like to post a lot. And yeah, so what are those? Where can we find you?
Please follow me. I am at High Fashion Hippie on Instagram. The O in fashion is a 0 though, because someone else had the other handle. So I couldn't take that one. And then my YouTube is my name, Isa Spies. As well as, and my Instagram /Depop shop is at I Spy Designer. So yeah, those are the 3 platforms I'm on. I don't have Twitter. I barely use Facebook, only to share my videos and like keep up with family a little bit. So for now, those are my primary media sources. But I am someone who practices a bit of digital minimalism. So I have to take breaks. I'm not always on the social media platforms. But I am, something that I am doing, I'm trying to actually start up like this week is TikTok. So
okay.
I'll be on TikTok. I think my name on there is also High Fashion Hippie. So
with a 0 as well, or
with the 0 as well.
Okay.
So, if my calculations are correct, I think it is also the 0.
Okay. All good. Yeah. And then if there's any, like, we could always clarify these afterwards, just to make sure all the text is right. But perfect. Awesome. Oh my goodness. Once again, thank you so much, Isa, for being our second guest here on this podcast. This is a new endeavor and we're super excited just to hear more stories like yours. And yeah, just thank you so much for putting the time, energy, and effort. My cheeks actually hurt. I think I've been smiling this whole time.
You have such a nice smile. Like your smile makes me smile.
No, you as well. Okay, it's contagious through the screen. But yeah, so thank you so much once again. And yeah, so
thank you for having me. I really enjoyed. I love doing this stuff. I love chit-chatting and talking about, talking professional, but also life too, right. and getting a little bit outside of the box. It was really fun. I had such a good time.
Oh, that makes me so happy. And just not only for this project, but like, I think it sheds a lot of light for our listeners out there, especially like students, because just to know that, it's number one, it's not a linear path, like just because you choose a major or a class or something, but secondly, that there's more to you than just your professional and academic development, there's the emotional, the spiritual, like just the introspective development as well, so just thank you again for sharing those stories. And yeah, that is like pretty much the end of this episode. So yeah, for now we can maybe say bye to our viewers. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. If you want to connect with me, please do find me out there on the internet. I'd love to chit chat some more. Open, I've loved talking to people. So please do reach out if you want to speak more.
Awesome. Okay.
All right. you made it to the end. First of all, just thank you so much. It was a long podcast, but so happy that you were able to listen to the end, and hopefully you were able to gain some value out of this as well, and it hopefully inspired something in your academic or professional or even personal life. And yeah, so just to reiterate, we are looking for new alumni to be able to feature in this podcast. We have a current set of lineup for the upcoming 2023 year, but if you are interested, please do feel free to reach out. We would love to work with you and to be able to capture your story too. And just to reiterate, for any current students in the SOMHP program, we are interested in also working with you to be able to provide jobs for you and to build a strong team for this podcast. So let us know if you're interested in the comments or email down below, and we will see you guys in the next episode. All right, stay inspired. Bye-bye. And bye.